Alright, so I'm looking over, let me turn on the light. Some light anyways. So I'm looking over these instructions from Goodwin. Alright. So here there's some irregularities or inaccuracies, I should say. So here it says 4mm Allen head. It's actually 5mm. So 4 is wrong, it's actually 5. Red Loctite 271 high temperature. So this is not accurate either. 271 is high strength. High temperature is 272. So high temp is 272. And if you don't, if you question that, let's look here. So here's Loctite, you know, Loctite brand, right? The Loctite brand. You look at their charts of various Loctite product. Right, so let's look at 271 and 272. So here it is, 271, high strength for fasteners up to 1 inch. 272, high temperature application. So there's a right, so there's a conflict between them saying 271 high strength versus high temp, which is 272. So I'm gonna have to contact them and verify this to make sure what it is. Okay. So we got that down. Hey boy, good boy, good boy. All right, let's look at the rotors themselves. So my last video, my unboxing video, I made a mistake. And I sort of caught it, but I didn't. Right here, I had talked about, right? So this is right, and actually this one is right too. When I was looking at it, I was looking at it in how they labeled it, right? They say left going on the left side, basically the driver's side, going the driver's side. If it's spinning, if you're going straight or you're going forward, it should be spinning, looking at the rotor, it should be spinning counterclockwise, right? So I was looking at that, I'm like, wait a minute, that's not right. This picture here, that didn't make sense, right? But this picture is actually correct if you were looking at it from the back side. Or actually, if you were looking at the right rotor, not the left rotor. The right rotor from the back side. So here's, oops, dang it. Here's the right rotor, right? So the right rotor would be spinning counterclockwise if you were looking at it from the front, you know, from outside, looking at the rotor itself if it's on the car. But that picture, this picture right here, this picture, this would be the orientation if so the vanes, or actually, let's see, the vanes are actually this direction, just like this picture here, but these cuts are in a incorrect, you know, how they're drawn. They're actually not proper. So the vanes are actually in line, you know, the same kind of the same angle as the slots here. So all the vanes here are like so. All right. So this image is sort of correct. The rotation in relation to how the vanes are angled, but the actual slots themselves on the surface of the rotor on this picture here is not correct. So this one should be spinning like so. All right, since this is the right side, or the passenger side, it should be spinning like so. All right, if it's the, you know, that's the inside. If it's on the outside, it would be spinning this direction, like so. Then on the driver's side, it should be spinning on the face side. It should be spinning like, you know, that direction, basically, because the vanes are lined up with the slots, the slotted rotor. On the back side, it would be spinning that way. So I was correct, but I wasn't quite accurate, because this picture this picture here is actually not, you know, it's not accurate where the slotted on the surface of the rotor, those slots are actually not the correct orientation. It should have been, instead of like so, it should have been like that way. So anyways, so that's that. So looking through here, actually I haven't checked if this one's right or not. 8mm socket, so that's for the caliper armature. So I think that looks like about 8mm. I have a 5mm here. Let's see. Oh, actually, is this 5mm? Yeah, this is 5mm. So 5mm fits these ones. You know, remember I had mentioned they say 4mm. It's actually 5mm. So that's where the hats, right? This is countersunk, so it's flush. So it's 5mm, not 4. Even though it says 4 in here. So these ones, if this was, I should get my other socket. If this is 5mm, or if this is 8mm, as they claim on here, this 5mm should go past the halfway. I have it on here, and it's about halfway. So this might be a 10mm and not a 8. Actually, let me go grab my socket real fast. Grab the jiffy. 8 or 10. Okay. I need to lock my tool shed. 8 or 10. Let's bring that with us. Let's bring that with us. 8 or 10. So let's look at it. So here's an 8. So that's an 8mm. Let's see. So yeah, 8mm. You see that right there? 8mm. So it's actually not. It's not an 8mm. Too loose. It's actually a 10mm. So here's a 10mm here. All right, 10mm. There you go, 10mm. So that's it. So they're off on those two measurements that were not accurate. So that's not accurate. It's supposed to be 10mm. Right, so 10mm, huh? Allen head. So 10 and 8. So I'm gonna have to check on them. So this right here is supposed to be for these, or excuse me, this right here. Yeah, that's right. This, you know, this Loctite that they, you know, according to the instructions. According to the instructions, if you look at installing caliper bracket, which is those blue bracket. This is what moves your caliper further out, so that way they could fit the larger rotors here, right? So anyways, on there they say blah blah blah. Use the red Loctite on these bolts. I'm not sure if it's the because there's two bolts. There's the original bolts from the original calipers, and it goes through this bottom hole where there's no I believe it goes, no, actually no, it doesn't go to that one. It goes to these ones with the threads. Then these ones here goes to the one without the threads, and that will mount onto the to your calipers. Let's see, is that right? Blah blah. Installing bracket as shown. This mounts hose located by factory calipers on the car. We use those factory bolts yeah, we use the factory bolts to the thinner section, which is here, the thinner section. Use red Loctite on these bolts. So basically, they want you to use red Loctite on the original factory bolts onto these, you know, this thread here. And this thread has a helicoil on it, so it should be a lot stronger than just bare aluminum, right? So that's what you use the red Loctite on, or possibly high temperature. You know, being on the brake rotor mount, I'm not sure how hot they actually will get. I know they get hot, but will they get hot enough to require a high heat, high temp 272 Loctite? I don't think so. I don't see a need for that. You know, usually the high temp Loctite is for, like, for example, for the headers. You know, the flange on the header where they mount to the engine. That's where you would use high temp Loctite. So I'm thinking the 271 is right, high strength, but you know, I think they just typo. It's not high temp, it's high strength. But you know, I'm gonna call them anyways and double check to make sure. You know, that way there's no error or nothing going on, right? Blah blah blah. 35 foot-pounds for that. Then rotor assembly. So basically, so that's where the countersunk goes to the hats. All right. You have your rotor. And the rotor hats, it doesn't matter. They're the same. Either side's the same. So this flat side here, that's the face or the outside. You know, so if you're standing, if this was mounted and you're looking at your brakes, this is the face side, the side that you see, versus the other side is the inside. So obviously your countersunk Allen head screw and the serrated flange nut, and these nuts are actually 13 millimeter. Where's my 13? So 13 millimeter is kind of similar to, very close to a half inch. So I might even grab my half-inch socket and see if it fits better. If it fits tighter. If it fits tighter, I'm gonna use my half-inch socket instead. But a 13 definitely fits. I tried a 12 and a 14, and those ones were too small and too big. So this is at least a 13, and it has a pretty good amount of wiggle. I think you could probably fit a half-inch. A half-inch will actually be tighter than 13 millimeters. Half-inch comes out to, I think, 12.6 millimeters or 12.7 millimeters, something like that. A little bit over 12.5 millimeters. And this is just a little bit of wiggle room, so you might want to try a half inch instead. Unfortunately, as far as Allen head goes, I only have metric. I don't have any inch. You know, I don't have any SAE standards, or at least I do just a regular key, but I don't have the socket type because I want to torque this down with my with my torque wrench, so I need a socket type. So anyway, so that goes like so, and this, you know, on the other side, on the back side, and it says blah blah crisscross pattern, right? Just like you would the lug nuts on the wheels, right? Blah blah. Then here it says no Loctite required, so no Loctite on these things, right? Blah, blah. Then initially set your torque wrench to 18 foot-pounds. So do the crisscross pattern on all of them, 18 foot-pounds first. Then once you get all of them 18 foot-pounds, adjust your torque wrench to 25 pound-feet, 18 pound-feet, 25 pound per foot. Right, 25 pounds at a foot length, 25 pound-foot on, you know, crisscross pattern on all of them, and that should be good there. And again, these rotors are directional, and I covered that in the first part of the video. And this, you know, this right here is that's an error in the picture drawing. So this is right here is interesting here. This brake pad bedding. That's very interesting right there that I saw. Usually with most brake pads, anyways, at least the common normal brake pads, never did this way. I just basically drove the car just like a car, just normal street driving. That's how I've always done it. And same thing with my motorcycles too, and I've never had problems with it, with neither one. But this bedding instructions are actually very specific. So they say blah blah blah, drive on your new rotors for about 50 miles, and after that you want to do some place where you could do stops, repeated stops, starts and stops. Initially you want to do some light ones just to warm up the rotors. So they say, oh, go from 30 to 5 a few times to warm up the rotors. Then after that, do 20, 60 to 20, progressively harder each time. So that basically what that does is that heats up the rotor. Once you warm it up and you heat it up, it gets hotter and hotter, right? And the goal, they say here, is to get them hot. In big capital letters, hot. All right. Then you should smell something. That means you should be able to smell the pads when they get hot enough. Then after that, they say drive in large circles without hitting the brakes to cool them. So basically, you want to cool them, so you don't necessarily have to drive in circles, but you just need to drive so that way you're not using them, so you're letting them cool, right, for 5 minutes. So let them cool for 5 minutes. Then after that, it says you do not want to come to a complete stop until they cool down a fair bit, or you will get uneven pad material transfer. Uneven material transfer meaning some of the pad material bedding into the rotors. There might be some sections where there's more buildup of that bedding versus less buildup, so that will cause it to feel like warped rotors. Usually warped rotors, what warped rotors feel like is when you are on the brake, you will feel the steering wheel kind of wiggle a little bit. That's a sign of a warped rotor, or a rotor where the thickness is not consistent. Where, for example, one section of the rotor, let's say here, it's thinner than the section over here. When it clamps down, a part that's thinner versus part that's thicker, that will sort of make your steering and the elite, or the feel on your brakes. It feels kind of like it's pulsing, sort of almost like the ABS is activating. And I've actually had that happen before on a bike I had. I had a bike that where I got the rotors, and somehow I think during the manufacturing, something happened to one of the rotors where there was like a little nick on the rotor, and what they did, instead of tossing that aside and using a new rotor, they tried to save money and basically stick it back in there, but the nick is very obviously there. So what they did was they kind of that one spot they kind of surface grounded, it looks like, because it was very smooth. They surface grounded down a little bit more, so that way it made that nick smooth. But because of that surface grounding, that spot was actually thinner than the rest of the rotor, and every time I hit the brakes, it would feel like you could feel that pulsing, like kind of like ABS was on, or the steering was kind of shaky. So that's how that feels. So let it cool down without let them cool down, and you don't want to come to a complete stop until they cool down a fair bit, right? So basically you drive around some more without using the brakes, so that way they could cool down, right? So after they cool, you could go home and park, but this is interesting too. So park the car in gear without using the handbrake. So I think that's again that has to do with them wanting to cool the rotor uniformly, because when the handbrake's on a spot, that spot might be a little bit warmer or cooler. It won't cool evenly, or the cooling won't be even with the spot where there's no brake, where there's no brake contact. So that's interesting. So this is a very thorough OCD instructions, which I sort of like, but I sort of don't. I never done anything like this. All the times I ever had new brakes, I just drove them like a normal. I never did any hot, I never did any hot braking to bed them in or anything like that. See, okay, so while it's cooling rapidly, you hear pop sounds and such. Don't worry about it, because that's the expansion of the rotor and the hats, because these are different materials, so they expand and contract at different rates. So that's what you're hearing. So that's normal. Don't worry about that. Next day, you're ready to roll. Before and after any hard track days, check recheck the calipers and the mounting bracket bolts. So basically, these here and these here where the mounting brackets are, right, for the caliper, and where the actual mount to the car itself is. The anchor spots, basically. Blah, blah, blah. And brake fluid is cheap. Change them once a year. And I do that on my motorcycles. All my bikes, every year I change them, and you can feel the difference after changing it. Even only a year in use, afterwards they always feel much firmer, more. They have better feel and such. On this, since I'm not doing any track days or anything like that, I'm just street driving. I probably would do it maybe every 2 years. Sometimes I kind of cheat too. If I do it every year, I do the cheating method. Instead of bleeding them out, I just empty the reservoir as much as I can with a little syringe. Then I will fill up the reservoir again. That kind of, that over time, that will reduce the overall moisture content in the brake fluid itself. Right? It's like if you have salt, salty water. You add a little bit, you take some of that salt. You siphon out some of that salty water, and you add fresh water in. You're basically diluting the saltiness, so it brings the saltiness down. So brake fluid holds water, and after a year of use, it accumulates a certain amount of water content in the brake fluid. You drains most of it out, basically the reservoir, and you put in fresh brake fluid. That will lower the water content. So that's my lazy method of changing brake fluid. I usually do that every year on a car, so I don't so I could sort of kind of get away with not having to bleed brakes every year. And I usually don't. I usually do it every 2, maybe 3 years. Just regular street riding, usually every 3 years, but with that reservoir change. Let's see. Let's measure the rotors real fast. We have the dimensions there. I have my calipers here. It's better to do this, on the picture here. Here it says caliper, but this is not a caliper. This is a micrometer. So there's a difference. And I do have some micrometers, but I'm not sure where I left them. I hardly ever use my micrometers. I usually use my calipers more than anything. So make sure this is clean. Anytime the surface is here, even though it's like a little speck of dirt, it will throw your measurements off, right? So I should do the same thing with the rotors as well. Let's bring this up. You guys are not gonna be able to see this because it's in the light. Let's see. Maybe you can see this. Let me try it from this angle here. So it's 0.814. Yeah, 814, that's the thinnest I could get it. Let's try up here. 0.8135. So thinnest I could get is 3.5. Try different spots. 1.15. Oh, there it goes. 1.135. 8.135. That's one. Let's try the other. One 4, 8.135. So these are pretty much the same. Yeah, 8.135.8. So that's basically 0.8135 is right. Saying it properly, it's 814 thousandth of an inch. That's a lot of words there. I think it's, at least for me anyways, it's easy to say 0.8114 or 135. So anyways, so that's it for now. One other thing I want to add to, as far as looking at these rotors, you look at the rotors here and you can actually see the machining. How this thing was done on a lathe. It was turned on a lathe, and you can see the grooves and you can feel the grooves. So I want for the cost of these things, how expensive they are. They're basically $800 for the setup. I think they could have done better with that. Instead of just turning it on a lathe, they should have grounded these. They just should have surface grounded them. Most rotors that I've purchased in the past, the nicer ones, they've always been surface grounded. And surface grounding does two things. One is that it makes the surface here nice and flat, right? So both surfaces nice and flat, but also both sides are, the two sides here, they if you do it right, besides being nice and flat on a plane on each one, those two sides here, those two planes will be parallel with each other, and it's a lot more precise than doing it on a lathe. So paying $800 for this thing, I expected at least they should have at least done that. Now I paid a lot less for other rotors, a lot less for other rotors, and those ones have been surface grounded. But with that said, if you do it on a lathe and you do it very well, it's not quite as precise as the surface grinding, but it should be good for almost, I wouldn't say 1,000th of an inch. It depends on the machine, the lathe. If you have really high-end lathe, very precise lathe, it should be 1,000th of an inch. But a lot of lathes most lathes are not actually 1,000th of an inch. They're actually about 2,000th of an inch off. Even though the machine itself, like for example, you look at the mill, a Bridgeport mill, you look at the adjustment numbers on the dials on there, they always go down to 1,000th of an inch. Their precision level is actually not 1,000. It's actually, if you measure it, it's actually if everything's good and everything's fresh and new and it's not worn out, they at best they're 2,000th of an inch, accurate in precision. And not 1,000, even though the numbers say 1,000. So that's just true with the lathe as well. Unless you have a lathe, you want it to be 1,000th of an inch, say for a mill or a lathe, your numbers has to be lower than 1,000th of an inch. Whatever you want the precision to be, how precise it is, how accurate it is, the adjustment on the machine has to be twice as precise or half that, I should say half that precision. So if you want a 1,000th of an inch precision, your machine, your mill, your lathe needs to be able to go down to the fourth decimal place to basically 0.0005, right? 1,000th of an inch is 0.001, all right? So you want it to be half of that. So anyways, that's me rambling on way too much, way too long. Sorry for the long video, but just had stuff to say. All right, thanks for watching.